What do I do when I want to take more photos, but like normal people, I work most of the time during the day? Well, one option is to wake up at 5 a.m. in the middle of winter with below freezing temperatures, to head out to work, to explore new areas along the way. Because I think for local landscape photographers, people who are doing photography as a hobby, people who are doing photography part-time, they really need those times when they can go out and explore, which might not obviously be during the day, and you might have limited time because you have to go to work. But there are a few ways that I found to work really well. So here are 5 lessons that I found to work around my day-to-day work schedule, but also make the most out of excellent conditions and all the beauty that our local landscapes have to offer. Lesson number 1 is to use your frame factor. Let's say that I'm planning to take a walk along a trail, and I also want to take photos. Now, I know that for that amount of distance, I might take maybe an hour to complete the trail. But when I'm planning to also take photos along the way, especially if it's a new area and I'm trying to explore it as well, I need to apply my frame factor multiplier to this amount of time. So for this walk that would normally take me 1 hour, I need to multiply it by at least 2 to make sure that I have planned for enough time, given that I'll also be taking photos along the way. I really need to keep that in mind, because if I'm planning to go to take photos before work, then time is really of the essence. I can't plan without knowing how much time I'm actually going to be able to spend. The question is whether it was worth it to wake up in the morning earlier than work to come here to check out this new spot. It's like 28 degrees Fahrenheit right now, but no wind at least, so I have that going for me. Lesson number 2, you really do need light to see more than just photography. Obviously, before you go to work, it might actually be dark outside and you won't actually be able to see different compositions. You won't be able to actually see what the scene will look like if you wanted to take a photo. And by the time the light comes up and you are ready to take your photo, it might be too late because it might be time to go to work then. And you've wasted too much time trying to plan your composition then. There are 2 different ways to go about this. One way to do this is to go out exploring at other times, maybe after work, over the weekend, even when the light is pretty bad, then come back to that location before work when the light is really nice, during golden hour, or if it's foggy in the morning, etc., when you know the conditions are perfect and you know what composition to get. Or the other way is to think more about shooting as the days are getting longer, which means sunrise is going to be much earlier and you'll have a lot more time or a lot bigger gap between when you can go out and start actually viewing the scene, actually exploring during sunrise hours, and when you have to go to work. And then lesson number 3 is to elevate your planning skills. Originally, what I used to do was just look on Google Maps and see where the location that I want to go to. Maybe there are a couple of pictures that other people have posted on the internet or on Google Maps itself, so I can get a better idea what the place would look like. Now, the second level is to also factor in weather apps. So right now, I use 3 different weather apps to kind of see how the weather will be in that location, to see if I'll be able to get the light, the conditions that I want to. The next level on top of that is to use apps like Google Earth. And what this allows you to do is view the landscape in 3D. So you can actually look around and move around that location, seeing whether or not there will be hills in the way, what type of landscape you'll be able to get, how different trails will lead to different locations. Final level is to be able to use Google Earth on your desktop. Now, there are 2 different applications. One is the web-based and one is the desktop. The desktop-based application actually allows you to do a lot more. It also incorporates lighting into Google Earth. So you can actually look across time how the lighting changes the landscape and how the sun moves across the landscape. So you'll be able to see shadows and light in that location when using Google Earth on your desktop. Another app at this level would be to use PhotoPills. PhotoPills is really good for planning because it tells you where the sun is going to rise at that time, where the sun is going to set, and it has a lot more things that you can explore, which, to be frank, I haven't even gotten to yet. But what these planning skills are trying to do is reduce the amount of time that you'll need searching for different locations. And yeah, last night I did a little bit of research on a new location that I wanted to see close to work. That's the building that I was kind of hoping to get a nice glow of sunlight, but that isn't really coming true. But what I did wake up to is a really nice frost, and I think that is something that I'm going to try and make the most use of. And the goal, I guess, right now is more of exploration than anything, just because I haven't been to this spot before and I really want to see the type of compositions that I can find here, especially if I come at different times of the day, maybe during sunset one day. Lesson number 4. Do you know how to see like a photographer? What I mean is observation is everything. When I go to a new location, especially when I'm exploring, I might have something in mind that I wanted to capture, right? I would have looked at that location previously, tried to plan for a certain photo maybe, and then I'll try and go explore that. So while I'm walking, I'm observing the water and the different positioning of the trees within the water. And I think I really like this spot. There's a decent amount of water right here, over here. So there's a good amount of water separating the different kind of islands or land between the different spots. And I think that can create a really powerful composition where everything isn't just very chaotic. So if I were to shoot, for example, a photo in this direction, there isn't much separation. There's no water easily flowing through. I'm looking for water, I'm looking for trees, I'm looking at how the light is moving and trying to see how the light will change along the way as I walk and see whether or not a certain spot would look better a little bit later in the day. So this is the composition that I think I'm gonna go for. And I've attached a ND filter right over here so that I can increase the exposure because it is pretty bright out right now. What I want to do is shoot at f13 so that I can get most of the scene in focus at the same time, but I do want to raise the exposure to 30 seconds. And if I take off the ND filter, this histogram will move all the way to the right and it's just going to look very blown out. So attaching basically sunglasses to the camera so that I can get that long exposure. This is different than when you're normally just going on trails for walk or for hiking. You are continuously observing the things around you rather than just letting everything wash over you, because it is in those moments where you might find something that catches your eye, and it is those photos that you create during that time that really speak to what you like in nature and what you like in landscape photography. These frost-covered leaves, I really like them, and I think I want to try and get a more abstract slash macro photo of these with their frost. I think that's what I'm going to try and aim for next. Even with these, I think the thing to look for is pattern, because although you could take a picture of pretty much any small section and it would look pretty, if you want to make a really nice composition, kind of have to play around with the patterns and see what works. You don't want it to become too chaotic, right? So for example, I really like these 3 different leaves and the pattern looks pretty nice, and I can get a close-up view of that, I think, in isolation with the rest of the things around it and the vines adding a little bit more dynamism to the photo. Because all these leaves also have direction of their own, they are basically pointed, which means if I can find a cluster that looks like they're all leading in the same direction, kind of like we can see right here where you have all the different leaves pointing downward into that point. If I can find something else aesthetic at that point for the viewer to look at, that would make for a great photo. The moments where you really enjoy photography, where you find something because you're observing all the time. And I think that's a trait that people who are starting out in photography need to build, and it just comes from actively observing, which is looking around and thinking about the space, thinking about all the different lines, all the different components, thinking about the cloud, thinking about the light, where it's coming, where it's hitting, the shadows that are being created. All those things come with a little bit more time and experience. And lesson number 5, you just didn't wait long enough. There is a problem that we amateur landscape photographers have to deal with, which is sometimes we just run out of time and have to go to work. But the difference between photographers and normal people is that we know that the light and conditions can change just like that. So when you're out there before work trying to take photos, you really have to try and see whether the light is changing and how that will affect the environment around you. So on that day when I woke up, there was frost. And I knew the temperature was going to rise. So before I could leave, I started to see the sun going higher and higher and raising the temperature a little bit so that now the frost was starting to melt and evaporate. What this meant was I had got this gorgeous mist in the area. And so I stuck around long enough to see the light interacting with the frozen leaves, to see the light interacting with the water, increasing the mist and creating a really nice atmosphere. but sometimes I am wrong about this. So later that evening, I went to a different location, hoping that the gorgeous clouds that evening would be lit up by the sun, which had been starting to peek out a little bit. But the sunset just happened much faster than the clouds could move away. But even though I waited out there longer than any normal person would have, I ended up not getting the right shot, but I did find a location that I can come back to if I see that the conditions are a little bit different. Local landscapes have so much to offer, so much beauty, and to really make the most out of it with our normal work-day lives, we really have to try and plan to go early in the morning when the atmosphere is just amazing, to explore and repeatedly go back to those same locations when we know that conditions are going to change. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.